Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is from my mom, and she always said, "Whoever said life was going to be fair," and she said that to me as a young boy, and and part of it is you want to do certain things. You see friends, and I kind of had the unique situation of I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in East LA, grew up in Echo Park, and you normally go to the school where you live, the nearest school. And there was a program at the time where kids were getting bussed out into the valley. And so I would go to my elementary school, hop on a bus, go another 45 minutes into Sherman Oaks.
Welcome to
that
this
time,
week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with my very special guest, Hector. I didn't even ask, Barajas?
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I've been studying Spanish on Duolingo. So I'm going to credit that to if I got that right, like I did. So thank you. Because I've never said your last name out loud.
No, the pronunciation was
That's
great, but do you know what the translation is for Barajas?
no. What is it?
It's poker cards. So someone in the family must have gambled
Are
some.
you
But yeah,
serious?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
You
And
have
if
to
you
find out the history at some point.
Well, and it's interesting too, if you fly into Madrid, Spain, the airport there is Barajas International Airport,
Oh,
and it's in Barajas, a town. And so I've got a couple friends that have been there, and they've taken pictures like, oh look, Barajas Pharmacy, Barajas this, Barajas Hotel. So it's
so
kind of neat.
you're probably connected to some founding people in Spain.
Yeah, maybe, but we get no royalty, so so
You
much
never
for
know. If you dig and turn those rocks over, you never know, Hector. But
yeah,
in the meantime, you're co-founder of Amplify 360. So you're a PR firm, right? Is
Mhm.
that the best way to describe it?
That's
You
correct. Yeah,
met because you participated in SBA, so Small Business Administration Thrive program, and you were one of, I think, 25 CEOs that signed up to be in that program. And I had the privilege of being the business coach for your cohort, and freaking loved it. And we still, everybody still meets, which is so freaking cool. So
yeah,
I enjoy that, and I'm glad to have you on. I know you have a number of quotes. And I joked, and I'll tell people, I joked around. Hector is so prepared because he's in the PR space that he sent me some information that I've never had any other guest send. And so I appreciate that. So I've got cheat sheets here, which is so cool. But I probably won't need it. Anyway, you have a quote to kick us off with, and so I appreciate that, and then we can chat.
yeah. One of my favorite quotes is from my mom, and she always said, "Whoever said life was going to be fair." And she said that to me as a young boy. And and part of it is you want to do certain things. You see friends, and I kind of had the unique situation of I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in East LA, grew up in Echo Park, and you normally go to the school where you live, the nearest school. And there was a program at the time where kids were getting bussed out into the valley. And so I would go to my elementary school, hop on a bus, go another 45 minutes into Sherman Oaks. And at that time, out in Sherman Oaks, it was predominantly Caucasian. You
Hmm.
had doctors, lawyers. I mean, you had a lot of different folks who lived in that area. And so I got to mingle in with people from a very different social economic position than we were.
Hmm.
We're an immigrant family. My parents came here when they were 19 years old without any documents. My mom was a seamstress. My father worked downtown where they imported all the fruit, sweet.
Wow.
And so, there were certain things, and when you're a kid, you don't really understand the differences much. The kids look different because you had blonde, blue-eyed, and, back at home, we had a little bit darker skin, some of us with colored eyes, but, nonetheless, a little bit different there. And so, I remember one time, it was one of my funniest stories I tell now as an adult is I came home all excited, said, "Hey, mom, dad, so where are we going to go vacation?" And they're like, look at me like, "What?" Yeah, my friends are, planning their families are gonna go vacation.
Yep.
And like, Mijo, we don't vacation. And so, there were certain things like that. And her big message was, look, no one ever said life was gonna be fair. You've got to work for what you have. And you just gotta work for it. And if you want some of these things later on in life, what are the things you're doing now in order to get there? And part of her
Mhm.
big thing was education. And it was an important thing because when I entered the third grade, I had at that point the highest education in the household.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so, and part of it, there were a lot of I was the oldest, and certain responsibilities came where I would translate for my parents. I would, if there was a dispute over with, some bill that they had, they would, you put in a call, and then I would translate and listen to the person what they said, translate to my parents in Spanish, my parents their Spanish into English, and so, at a very young age, I kind of learned to maneuver a lot of these different things. And so it was, you were gonna make whatever you're gonna make yourself in life, you had to build those building blocks. And you know what? And we were born a certain way, and you're just gonna have to work at it. And so,
Hmm.
and I've carried a lot of that into my adult life, um, where I look at life and I said, it's not going to be fair, but what am I going to do to kind of change the outcome of my own personal life, my family's life, and even those around me?
Hmm. It's interesting to think that, because it's like I I hear your story, right? And the situation that you had, and it's got to be interesting for a kid to step into that role, to go, okay, I'm now involved in my parents' financial stuff, if
Mhm.
there's things like that, because I'm translating. Where, as a child, for me, I'm going to think back to third grade or growing up, I wasn't exposed to that stuff for the most part. I mean, I remember the soonest I can remember, I think I was 15. My dad had bypass surgery. He was 43 years old, didn't smoke, didn't drink, nothing, just high stress personality type, and
Yeah.
had blocked arteries. And so that we had a major financial change in our household then at that age. And so that's when I stepped into that kind of role. But I was so much older than you, Hector, at that point, because my job was to manage the food budget of our family. And our pay was cut back. This was way back,
Mhm.
70s. Our pay
Yeah.
was cut back $1,000 a month because my dad had to discharge from the Air Force and become a veteran to be able to have this bypass surgery done. And it was a big role and responsibility to step into, but I was so much older than you at that point. So I can't imagine um, what that was like. But then again, that was your norm. I mean, that's just the what you were used to and what you went on. And I imagine, I know you to be very, very responsible, very caring for other people. In fact, you were named one of co-valedictorian in our cohort in the Thrive group. Um, because of you stepping in to help and support other people. And so I can't help but imagine that's probably where it's grounded in.
It is. And part of it, growing up is you didn't know any different. You didn't know that this wasn't a role that was not normal.
Hmm.
And in your parents, it's like you just maneuver wherever you can.
Hmm.
And my parents, I love them to death. I'm still glad they're with us, and they're healthy and so forth, and I mean, hopefully have them for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of, for me at that time, like I said, I didn't know any better, and I'd look back at it and just have an absolute appreciation for
Hmm.
the different lessons, that I received from them. The lessons that I still get from mom and dad, and a lot of it is just life experience. And I've been lucky enough to carry that over as I've got, in an adult, where they, like I said, they were able to help me through certain points, right? With advice and so forth, but they've never owned a business. They never,
Mm-mm.
graduated high school or went into college, or did any of that. But at the same time, I was able to develop or get mentors along the way that kind of have helped me in different parts of my life. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of like getting different sets of, I don't want to say parents, but just advice that kind of comes in. And so, and that's kind of how I've maneuvered, throughout all these years. I'm now, 52 years old, and I've done, well for myself and my family. But at the same time, I continue to grow. I continue to learn more. And a lot of it is just from being I look back as being a kid, is you weren't allowed, or there was no time to be afraid to not
Hmm.
ask someone a question or to help out with a certain thing, because that you just didn't know any different.
It's interesting. Thank you. I'm curious about when you look back at your career, because all the stuff that you mentioned that I would ask questions about, right, is like mentoring and who's that. what's a standout for you, Hector? Because you're on a very, I mean, I don't know that I've met anyone else who does what you do, right? So I'm curious of how that formed, how that came about, who influenced you into that and what you do now, because it's just like I said, I don't know anyone else who does what you do.
Well, you take lessons from different things you do in life, right? I played baseball for a very long time, and I had some great coaches, and I remember, so my coaches would say, hey, hard work beats talent every day of the week. And they would just kind of ingrain that in you is the more reps you put in, the better you're going to be at this. And, there were certain things, I did, growing up. There was I mean, to be truthful with you here, there was a point in time where I wasn't a very good reader. I I struggled in school, and I felt dumb.
Mm.
And so from there, I just, talked to some friends, and like, just pick up whatever you can and just read. I had this great teacher in elementary school, Miss Bonhottie, over in Chandler Elementary School.
I love that you remember her name
Oh yeah.
in school.
Oh, it was a big impact for me. And she just pick up everything you can and just read it. Just read whatever you can. She goes, I don't care what it is. And it was interesting because the bus driver, he had a newspaper, and he always carried a newspaper. And I would ask him, hey, can I read, it was the comics area. And so he says, yeah,
Hmm.
sure. Just bring it back to me when you're done. And when you get off. And so I would read it. And I had my 30, 40 minutes of reading. I started reading newspapers at a young age. And so now what I do is I get to write speeches for elected officials. I get to write TV ads. I get to edit. And it's amazing the little things you do then and the impact they have later on.
Hmm.
But a part of it was just all those different reps, and the reps you just got to do. And I had another mentor, Hank Wong, who passed away early in, I mean, he's the only person I've ever known to have passed away from a broken heart. Uh,
Oh,
his
no,
wife,
there's a lot of people out there.
yeah, his wife got cancer, died, and just it was all of a sudden, and it's just a sad situation. But
Hmm.
he was one of my great mentors who he gave me the advice, just on relationships. One of them was just remember you're not going to marry every single person you fall in love with. And the other one that he gave me, which I still remember to this day, is people are always going to be jealous of what you have, but they're never going to be jealous of what it took to get there.
Hmm.
And it's this idea is no matter what you do, just continue to work hard, continue to practice your craft, and you'll get to where you need to go. And mixing in those two kind of philosophies, or those two ideas, has got me to this point. And I utilize that for my clients, in the PR world.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you're talking. I have to laugh as it's that you're weaving in quotes and things that clearly have, informed your life and how you do stuff and how you step in. Um, it's it's interesting. I remember the first time we met in the classroom and you walked in. I think you had your suit on.
Yeah, I think,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but and it may have been you may have had a tie with it. You were doing, I think, some event that you were at.
Mhm.
And there's this presence, Hector, that you have when you enter a room, and it's not arrogance. It's just this very understated confidence, if you will. And so I remember being curious, as the leaders all walked into the room because I didn't know who you were, what you did, anything else, and we all had to do intros, of who we are and what's going on. And I was impressed by that, just this understated confidence of who you are. And what you talk about is you're in situations y- that can be contentious. I mean, that can be challenging. How do you maintain your cool or calm or confidence? Because I imagine that the Hector that I saw when I first met is pretty much the Hector that's in those settings as well. I could be wrong.
No, it's it took a long time. When I was I worked in Burbank, and I used to work for the Republican Party, and we did campaign work. And I had anxiety. I mean,
Mm.
I had my eye would twitch. I would every single time, every single time my phone would buzz, I would just kind of twitch. And I had this like
Wow.
really bad anxiety. And during that period of time, we would work 7 days a week. On Sunday, you'd get a break, so you only had to work about 6, 7 hours.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it's just an absolute marathon. And I did that for the better part of 10 to 12 years. Now, mind
Mm.
you, it isn't always, during that stressful time. It's usually around summertime till the day of election.
Mhm.
And it took me, oh, it really did take a while for me to try to get a balance of my life, to get a
Mhm.
balance of my work. I started reading about meditation. I got into
Mm.
meditation.
Yeah.
I started to read about self-help books. And then in a lot of them, it was, how do you create a break within your life, or how do you create a break within what you're doing? And so just like the simplest things, and I still do it to this day, is I just get up and walk somewhere. And even if
Mm.
I just walk downstairs to go check the mail, or I walk downstairs to the nearest Starbucks, even though I'm not going to buy anything, I just get up and walk. At the same time, I've developed certain things that I enjoy doing that just get me completely away from everything. And is I love watching movies. Like, I
Mhm.
love going to the movie theater, because when I'm there, my cell phone is off and all my senses are just concentrating on what's in front of me.
Mhm.
And I'm being entertained, and that kind of helps me reset.
Mhm.
The other thing is, I love changing my scenery. And so, for example, I'll be heading down to Los Angeles today. Um, and when I go down there, I'll go to Denny's and just sit there, and just write for the next 2, 3 hours. I'll tell the waitress, the waiter, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to be here just doing some writing, and I'll compensate them for it and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just have a whole different change of scenery, and I just sit down and write. And so all that has kind of helped me better get a handle on some of the stress that comes with work.
Mhm.
And I think a part of it too is just, and you develop this over the years, right? It's,
Mhm.
don't sweat the small stuff. Just, everything's got its place. I've been a lot better, over the years, of organizing my life,
Mhm.
organizing my day, organizing my week, my month. And so this way, there's not many things that surprise me as to what's happening in this calendar. Now, mind you, things will pile in, and we'll have to kind of do things a little bit differently. But nonetheless, if I can manage this portion of my life, then whatever comes before me, it's a lot easier to deal with.
Mhm. No, I have to smile and stuff. It's like I hang out at Denny's and sit there and it's a different scenery. All the stuff that you're talking about, and you're right, it's disconnecting.
Yeah.
So how do we do that, to your point, so you can reset? And it doesn't have to be one thing one way, but it's like just step away and allow your brain to have that moment of space,
Mhm.
and be able to process and think things through. I love that. I'm curious, for you, what advice would you have for people that may not be as successful at managing that as you do? Where do you start?
I think you start. I mean, I try to do on Sundays, for example. I sit down with my wife, and then we look at the week ahead. And so we start with Sundays,
Okay.
and we say, okay, what were the girls doing? Our family. What did the girls' sports or schools? Like, for example, this week is um, parent teacher week, and so
Okay.
it's okay. So the girls are coming out early on at 12:30, and so okay, so we have pickup at what time, and so we work out that schedule. We've got spring break the next week, and so we've got the 15-year-old. She's going to be down in Southern California at Disneyland because they're going to perform there. She's in band. And,
Yeah.
but there's still the 8-year-old. And so, one of the things we're doing is, okay, one day we can go to the zoo, another day we'll take her to the museum. And so I think those things you can plan out, because they're pretty well set. And then you start planning out your other things. Like, one of the
Yeah.
things that I've got to work on is, I may run 100 miles per hour in my work, but I need to start setting a schedule up for when I work out or taking, actual work, working out or taking care of
Hmm.
that portion of my life. And so that is something I've got to start scheduling out. But, the Zoom calls that you have, the other things, start putting those things down. And as you'll start seeing as things become a little bit easier, things will become a little bit easier to manage if you've got to,
Hmm.
and set up date night. If you're in a relationship,
Yeah.
set up some date nights or set up some times that it's just going to be you two spending time to look at the week ahead, look at the week that just passed, or just maybe you're going to watch an hour of a TV show together
Mhm.
or do something else together. And so, I try to put that stuff in, and it hasn't been easy. It's something that I've worked on over several years, and I like I said, I've been very blessed to have had some good mentors, to have had some good experiences. I remember I was gosh, it was like 26, 27 years old, and I worked for Bank of America, and they like sent me to like a 6 hour, 4 to 6 hour seminar on how to use the Franklin Planner, if you remember
Okay.
those.
Yes.
And so I went to that, and I mean, if you think about it, it's like, how the heck do you spend 4 to 6 hours on using a planner? But they had it.
Because it was a complicated planner.
Yeah. And so I went there and I learned to use a Franklin Planner, and it was amazing. I mean, at that time, right? I mean, now obviously we've got our phones, we've got everything else that we can coordinate. But honestly, I still use, and I've got my planner right here that I pull out.
Do
Um,
you have a Franklin planner?
no, no,
They're still around
no, I still plan my stuff in through
in
different ways.
handwritten. Okay.
Yeah, and
But I
I think
think what
myself.
my guess is, because I didn't ever attend a 4 to 6 hour session on how to use a Franklin planner, but my gut is they taught you planning,
Time
the
management.
structure, the thinking, all that stuff, right? Because when you're
Mhm.
talking, I think Covey has what they talked about is schedule the big boulders first,
Yeah,
right? Then you've got the smaller stuff, then you've got the sand that can, the noise of the
yeah,
sand
yeah, yeah.
that fills in. And that's what you're doing is what's the stuff that really matters? Then
Right.
we're going to get the other stuff. Because the other part that what you're talking about in situations, if we get in this cycle of firefighting, stress, whatever it may be, we tend to respond to stuff like everything's a five-alarm fire or everything is saving lives. And I think it's important to remind ourselves, when asked, is this going to matter 5 years from now? And to remind myself, I'm not saving lives. I've been in the business of supporting people who are saving lives, but I'm not doing that. So odds are the stuff that I have, my deadlines are not life-saving things, and yet we tend to have our body react that way to it.
Yeah.
So,
And I also, I mean, one thing that I really love is a checklist. I love checklists on, for work, but I also include there, just, I even include some of the smallest of things. And part of it is, because I get to check something off, and I,
yeah.
and I don't know, there's this psychological feeling of just, I don't know, you feel great at the end of the day, seeing all these different things checked off. And, there's going to be things that you've got to carry on for the following week, and that's okay. It's okay. And, but still seeing all those things that you check off, you feel good about it. And I think that's key. I think for a lot of folks is you got to find what are those things that work for you. You got to find set aside those times. I mean, I can't stress it enough. Set aside those times that are for you and your loved one, or and your family.
Hmm.
Those should be key in there. But at the same time, is once you start scheduling all these things, everything else just kind of seems a little easier. Uh,
Hmm.
and I always, the wife, with Amy, I talked to her, kind of
And she's a delight, by the way. Okay.
yes, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. And so, we talk about, what's happening the next week. And, sometimes you say, oh man, it's gonna be stressful. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal.
Mm-mm.
Things will, I'll figure it out. Things will get managed. And part of it is, it's kind of one big puzzle that I get to solve. And so, but as long as I've got my calendar, I know what today brings. I know what time tomorrow. It's my life gets a little easier to manage. And
Yeah.
it's been about maybe 15 years or 14 years that my eye hasn't twitched, that
Oh, wow.
yeah, I haven't had the anxiety that I had before. And I mean, and it was bad. I mean, I would go with friends and we would go grab a beer or drinks and stuff, and my eyes would just, I mean, it would just twitch, twitch, twitch from just the stress and the anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm obviously happy there that, I don't
Yeah.
have this. And, and my life, I've been able to enjoy my life a lot more
Yeah.
and the things that kind of come with it.
Um, it's funny when you were talking about stuff is you were like, I've got my checklist and you can check this stuff off. And I imagine that you're just check mark my stuff when I check it off. I'm lining through that puppy, man. It's like there's no little nice clean check. It's like, whoa, okay, it's a few times. I'm gonna
Yeah,
make sure. And it is a great feeling of accomplishment.
it is.
Yeah, I would love for you to share because you and I, when we chatted, because this is about creating space. One of your big shifts that I saw during the Thrive program
Mhm.
was you were looking at trying to create space for yourself to be able to, I'm going to say, leverage
Yeah.
other people in your org. Did you want to tell that story?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
It
It's
was a
funny.
fun one.
No, it is. And it's one of we had a conversation, and, I think sometimes and I know I did. I got caught up in this whole idea that, all right, everyone's kind of got their job, but I've got to carry, I've got to have the plate with the most things in it because
Mhm,
no one else can do it as good as I can. And what that was doing is it was preventing me from being able to travel a little bit more,
mhm,
go to pitch more clients, um, take a little bit more time off, on, meditation or doing other things that I wanted to do. And so, because I felt like I had to carry the biggest plate.
mhm.
And part of the discussion you and I had, which I really appreciate, and it was,
It was
uh,
funny.
and she said, you basically said, hey, so when are you going to start delegating this? How are you going to start putting those things and get other people to start doing them? And I said, well, I think I could start outlining these things out, and, maybe in the next 3 to 4 months. You almost fell off your chair. It's like, what? She goes,
I
no,
started laughing. I started
yes, you did.
laughing.
And you're like, what do you mean 3 to 4 months? And so the 3 to 4 months turned into a month, which then turned into, all right, I could probably do it in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
And it's true. It was just, and I love the line that you gave me, which was, if this is important to your business, why are you going to put it off 3 to 4 months from now? Why not take care of it now? And so, I've taken that, as I put into my planner for
Mhm.
my year. My word for this year is just do. And
Oh, I like it.
it's stop procrastinating, and stop saying, hey, I can take care of this later, especially when it deals with how, developing your business,
Mhm,
um or trying to expand, or trying to take things off your plate. And so it was just, what, I'm just going to do. I've got something ahead of me. I've just got to get it done. I'm just going to get it done. And so, and getting that portion became important. And so, yeah, so now I've got a bunch of things that I'm delegating out. I've got a little bit more freedom of my time to
mhm,
go and take care of, the other things, which, one of the things that we learned with this Thrive program, you're working on your you've got to be working on your business, not in your business all the time,
mhm,
especially as the leader of the company. And you've got to figure out ways to kind of expand out, how to, bring in more clients, how to make sure the clients are being taken care of, but, be able to do other things. And so
yeah.
I felt, I was, for a good portion, kind of stuck doing the work. And that was just a funny conversation that you and I had, but I think an important one, in the
Mhm,
sense of, it's okay. Other people can learn this, and it may not come out, 100% the way you do it, but at 75 and 80%, that's going to be good. And then you can start tweaking here and there to get it a little bit higher.
yeah, it was so funny, and I do remember it was the next time we all met because we were in person, like at the minimum once a month, and at one point in the end, it was like every 2 weeks. But you came in, and this was right after our coaching session. You came in, you're like, hey, look what I did. Boom, boom, boom. So and so's doing this.
Yeah.
And it was just unlocking because we have this, and you're not the only human that does this, Hector. We all
Yeah.
do it. Is we tell ourselves, I don't have time for that.
Mhm.
I don't have time for that. And so that's where the question is, how much time do you think it's going to take you?
Yeah.
And when you said 3 or 4 months, I laughed out loud. I was like, what?
Well, you laughed out loud, and then you said, "Stop BSing me," right?
I
Which was great. Which was great. Which I loved. I think for a lot of us is we've got to hear it, and it's got to be direct because it's true. We tend to at times put up these barriers or put up these things where we think it's going to take a little bit longer. And it's funny because when it comes to a client, if a client needs something, by Tuesday of next week, I'll have it done by Thursday or Friday,
Yeah.
and I'm on it. But at times when it's things that we need to take care of for ourselves, like I said, I think sometimes we tend to put it in the back burner because we think we need to move all these things around here. But
Mhm.
the reality is those things are just, and this is kind of from our conversation we had, that you said those things are just as important as the other things you're taking care for your clients, because this is going to free up more time, which it has. And it's allowed me, like I said, this past week, I was in Washington, D.C. I got back on Saturday. I'm heading down to Los Angeles today. I will be there till Tuesday. Then I go to a convention that I've got to go to from Thursday to Sunday.
Mhm.
But I'm not stressed out because I've got other people who are taking care
Mhm.
of a portion of the business.
The work still happens. The work
Right.
still goes on. Yeah. And it's about freeing up. And I think that, and it's going to happen regardless of whether or not you're self-employed, a leader in an organization, right? What's the
Yeah.
stuff that only you can do?
Right.
What is that stuff? And then the rest of the stuff, take a look at what else you're doing and who has an opportunity, because they have an opportunity to step in. It can be a development opportunity for them. It promotes the fact that, hey, I trust you, and creates capability in other parts of your organization, whether you're in a structured org and you're W-2 or you're self-employed, and work on your own.
Right.
Those are powerful lessons for leaders. And I think a lot of it is look in the mirror and say, if this is the stuff I need to be doing, what's getting in the way? And who else can be doing this stuff when you identify those things getting in the way? But yeah, I've had a similar conversation with a different client, that the laughter, but yours was hilarious. Because I remember, and so ask yourself this, right? If you say 3 to 4 months, because part of the question when we got down to like the month or the week, or 2 weeks, it's like, so you're telling me every single day for 2 weeks it's going to take, well, no, okay. But we need to do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like unloading the dishwasher with me. The dishwasher will run, there's clean dishes in there. I'm busy, book back to back. I don't have time to unload the dishwasher. Really? I don't have time to unload the, do you know how long it takes? I time myself. It's 2 minutes. So I think that's it, is just challenge this BS that you're telling yourself and then go get it done and not have the mental stress of carrying that around, because that's what you had before. It was the
Right.
mental stress of I need to be out doing this, but I'm doing all this other stuff and no one else can do it. Really? No one else can do it?
Well, and I think you've said it right now. There's a lot of folks that you coach, that you help out, that have that in their head about, no one else can do it as well as I can,
Yeah.
or I'm so that portion I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna put it in the back burner and take care of it later. Um, I mean, aside from calling BS on me, which you did, are there other things that you found have been helpful in with some of these other folks?
It is basically shining a light on it. So whatever language or whatever you do, but it's getting down to where you start unlocking your brain, because we're telling ourselves a story, right?
Yeah.
I had one client that literally it was, being able to pass off information to the inside office, right? When he was meeting with a client, the information, I'm just going to call it demographics. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Demographics. And it's not of an entire population. It's of that particular company, address, billing address, point of contact, all that kind of stuff. And he wasn't doing it. And I said, so how long do you think it would take you to, because he didn't want to interrupt the client meeting or whatever, because he's face to face with the client. So it creates rework on the back end when he does all this stuff because someone else has to call. How long do you think it would take to do? And he said something like 45 minutes, literally to get. And I laughed at him. I said, 45 minutes? Really? And it's not this intentional laughter. It's just,
Right.
it's so insane, right? That we look back and we go, 45 minutes? I said, really? 45 minutes? So we went a couple rounds with this, right? It went down to 30 minutes. And then finally it goes, probably 5. Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
But that was enough to unlock this barrier to where all of a sudden he could go do it. But we do this to ourselves all the time. So it's just a matter of these things that are getting in the way that you don't feel good about. You've got less than ideal outcomes. Ask yourself what's getting in the way. And if the
Yeah.
story is anything around, I don't have time, because I'm sure that was your narrative. I'm the one
Mhm.
that knows how to do it best. I don't have time to train them or to be able to hand stuff off. That's when we need to unpack the time thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think a part of it is just, at least for myself, it was, you built this relationship with the clients. You started from the beginning, and you kind of worked your way, through all the different problems and or issues or things that they're looking to solve. And it's, well, taking the time to kind of help them move through it. And one of the things I remembered in that conversation is, even starting in the business I'm doing now, is I learned how to sweep. I would I remember one of the jobs I had was getting what is it, paper towels and cleaning the windows,
mhm.
and and this is, I'm dating myself here, but also, how to clean the phones,
Yeah.
the handsets. And so, learning all that stuff. And part of it is, I think we get so caught up with work itself that we forget that at times, we're also trying to teach other folks how to do some of those basic things to kind of work their way up or understand the business itself. And not at the job of, taking out the trash or so forth, but
Yeah.
learning how to build that kind of the social media, how to do
Yeah.
some simple graphics and things like that.
Well, and I think part of it too, Hector, if we're honest with ourselves, those jobs that we've done for so long, there's comfort in doing them. And so it's hard to give up on certain tasks and roles that don't require tons of mental energy, don't require all that stuff. But I remember the question I asked you too is, how can you get, because you had a perspective that others didn't have because you were in the room with the client. It's like, okay, so how can you hand off those key pieces of information so that you empower your team or set up your team to be able to produce a similar quality output, whatever the thing is you're doing. And so that's where the brain starts working. It's like, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. But I think it's important for us to ask ourselves those questions. What's in the way? How can it happen? All this stuff. I've really, really, really enjoyed our time together. I invite you back whenever you have a spare moment to continue the conversation on different aspects, because I love what you're doing. So what are one or two things you'd love people to walk away with from our time together today?
I just love what you do. One of the things I tell my 15-year-old is, this idea of follow passions. I said, don't follow your passions, follow what you're good at, maximize it, and your passions will grow from there. And, and a part of it is just, I think for a lot, there's a lot of folks that don't enjoy what they're doing in their life. I love what I do. This is not just my job, but it's my hobby. And it's this idea of, if you do that and you're good at it, you'll learn, love to solve the puzzle itself. You'll love the people around you. And I guess if the other thing too is just set time out for yourself.
Mhm.
Block off time that is you time, that it's family time, because that there will kind of help you reset, and then you can go and, slay some dragons. So that's my advice.
I think part of it too is I love the intentionality you set around blocking off time, because we're not going to get this delivery of extra time at our doorstep. And what I found to be true is, us humans, we make time for things that are important. And so I think the key in that phrase, though, Hector, is making the time. So there is something in the intentionality around of it. Instead of thinking, I'm so busy, I don't have any time to do that. It's like, where can I find the time? Because it's there. To your point, it's there. We just have to identify it and call it out. Yeah. So thank you. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and Hector Barajas, and I look forward to the next time. Have a freaking awesome day. Thank you.